If you have any of those today, I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 18. We're going to read from 21 to 35. This is a really, really awesome story in the Bible that many of us know. And it says this: Then Peter came up and said to him, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me, and I will forgive him? So in other words, the conversation came up as to, if someone does me wrong, how many times do I have to forgive them? As many as 7 times? And Jesus said to him, he took it to the next level. Jesus said, I do not say to you 7 times, but 70 times. Some other translations say 70 times 7. 23 says, therefore the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and payments to be made. 26 says, so the servant fell on his knees, implored him, have patience with me, and I will pay you everything. And out of pity for him, the master of the servant released him and forgave him of his debt. 28 says, but when that same servant went out, the person that just got relieved of the debt, they now went out. 28 says, but when the same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii and seized him. He began to choke him, saying, pay what you owe. 29 says, so his fellow servant did the same thing he did, fell down and pleaded with him, have patience with me, and I will pay you. 30 says, he refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. We're almost done. 31 says, when his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed. And they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, you wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you? And in anger, his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. You have to understand in this passage that there's a few things that's going on here. One of the things that's going on is one of the things that's most evident in this passage. The thing that's most evident in this passage is that there is people that owe money, they owe debt. One is forgiven, and the one that was forgiven chose not to forgive the person that owed them money. So another thing that you're seeing in this passage is that there is authority. You can see authority in this passage because the master forgave the servant of a debt, and then that servant was a master over someone else. And it was an opportunity for that person to show forgiveness of the same thing that they were forgiven of. I want you to write this down today. Freedom is forgiveness. Turn to your neighbor and say freedom, or say it out loud. Freedom is forgiveness. Come on, say that again. Freedom is forgiveness. You see, freedom is a gift we want given to us, but one we don't want to give to others. Forgiveness is a gift that you want on Christmas. Forgiveness is a gift that you want on your birthday. Forgiveness is a gift that you want on Hanukkah. Forgiveness is a gift that you want when you are having your bar mitzvah. your sweet 16, your quinceañera. But when it's your turn to extend that gift, when it's our turn to extend that gift, it's hard for us to comprehend that. Why do I have to forgive that person of what they did to me? But it's easy to say, I want forgiveness. I want forgiveness. You see, I wrote this down. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about your freedom from the offense. Forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about you receiving forgiveness. Let me read it like it says again. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about your freedom from the offense. So when we look in terms of a situation, you can think of a situation where you felt like you were done wrong. And you expected to be forgiven, or you expected that person to say, I'm sorry. Am I the only one that over the course of my life, someone did me wrong and I expected an apology? Do I have people out here in the audience that expected an apology when someone did them wrong? Well, see, what this passage is letting us understand is that it is not about asking or having a verbal forgiveness from the other person. It's simply about having the offense out of your heart. And it doesn't matter if that person forgives you. You release them into God's sovereignty. You release them into God's judgment. Because let me tell you something. God's judgment and our judgment are two different things. I just want to put this out there to someone that's listening today, that I am glad that you're not God. I'm going to let that sit for a moment. I am glad that we are not God, because we always are, our natural human response is to go to the eye for an eye posture, not the turn the other cheek posture. We want the eye for an eye. I remember when I was dating and I thought I was so insecure in my dating, and so I was like, you ever seen the meme with like Jason back in the cut in the trees? Or I think it's Michael Myers, where he's got that awkward stare. Come on, I know y'all are memers here. He's like literally off in the cut. Almost like in movies where you see the person sneaking behind the bushes trying to see what the person is doing, what the spouse is doing. Maybe it's a fatal attraction. And so I remember being in those moments where I was dealing with trust issues. And it wasn't the other person that had the problem. It was me that had the problem. Because I was always thinking, well, I've always heard of my friends having significant others cheating on them, so it's only a matter of time before I experience that. And then all of a sudden that seed is growing. That seed is growing on the inside. It is time to be broken free from that. You know what? Here's a tough pill to swallow. And I say that in all sincerity because I have a wife that she doesn't like swallowing pills. So if you can't put it in a chewable or a gummy, she's not taking it. She doesn't, and it always seems like when we have to go to the doctors, they always give you the horse pill. The pill that looks like I don't know, something big. It's a horse pill, right? And so here's a tough pill to swallow. You might want to write this down because you're going to probably need to go back home and think about this. True offense deserves forgiveness, but pettiness and thin-skinned deserves correction. It's awful quiet in this Presbyterian church this morning. I guess it's because you guys are just really receiving that. Let me say that again. True offense. You see, there is a time in your life where you truly were done wrong. And for that person, you deserve forgiveness. But, somebody say but. Pettiness and thin skin deserves correction. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Where if I've heard this so many times, I've heard people say, Aaron, she looked at me the wrong way. He looked at me the wrong way. He passed by me and didn't say good morning. Or she passed me and didn't say good morning. Well, I have a question. Don't you have a mouth also? Can't you say good morning? Is it possible that the person is so focused on the task that they have tunnel vision and they're on their way to their path? And maybe if you stopped them and said good morning, you would allow them to realize, oh, wait, there's people around. Yes, good morning. How are you? You see, I want people to be broken free from the pettiness and the thin skin that says that every day you wake up, rather than looking for opportunities to be free and to be blessed, we are looking for opportunities to be offended. Man, I know this because this hit home. This stuff hits home. This stuff hits home with family, with friends, with ministry over the course of my ministry career. There's two types of people. There's the people that wake up in the morning and say, oh man, I am so glad that I'm awake and I am looking for opportunities for God to bless me. And then there's the other person that wakes up in the morning and said, I wish someone would try me today. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, I know this. I've seen this. I've lived this. Not only in friendships, not only in ministry, but in family. You see this all the time where I'm telling you, when you're a person that's in tune to the Spirit, you can walk into a room and tell the people that you're going to vibe with. And the same is true. When you're petty and thin-skinned, you can walk into the room and find the pity party people. You'll find the people saying, hey, we're having a pity party in 5 minutes. I'm right here. Come on over. Let's have fun together. Let's find out all who's offending us in the church today. Let's find out which friends are offending me today. Let's find out which family members are offending me today. And so then what happens is where people become in bondage is not just the person that is operating in thin-skinnedness, but then those of us that are free, we begin to have bondage because now guess what? We have to walk on eggshells because you're bipolar, or we have to walk on eggshells because you're sensitive, or we have to walk on eggshells because you're crazy. And now we're in bondage because now we got to watch every word that comes out of our mouth instead of being our authentic self, instead of having honest conversations. Now we're being fake and phony because we have to make sure that we don't offend you. And that's how the enemy wants to put free people in bondage. By making us be worried about the other person when the only help they're going to get is through Christ Jesus and his healing. You and me as a person, we're not going to be able to do that for the person. Not even God will go outside of your will and force you to do something. Freedom comes when we forgive. True offense deserves forgiveness, Derek. But pettiness and people with thin skin, they deserve correction. When is the last time? Think about this for a moment. When's the last time you had a family member or a friend or a coworker where you said, man, I just want to just be completely honest with them. But I know if I do that, it'll be over. Oh, I guess I'm the only one. That I had to make a decision. The blue pill or the red pill. I had to make a decision. Which route am I going to go? But you know what free people do? Free people are honest with themselves and honest with the others, even if that means they're not in their lives for a season. That's tough. For some of us, it's easy. It's a coworker. You can lock your door if you're in management. You can put do not disturb on your cubicle if you're at mid-level. If you're level entry and you're on the assembly line, you can put your headphones on and ignore them. If it's your friends, you can say, no, I'm not going to go out today. I'm not going to do this. But the one that really hits home is when it's family. What do you do when family is super offended at everything? You wake up in the morning and they're offended at you. You yawn and they're offended at you. We must understand that freedom comes when we operate in the grace and the gift of forgiveness. Is there someone that you're thinking of right now that could use a I'm sorry from you? Is there someone that you've been holding on to a grudge and you just didn't want to let go because you thought that if I let go, I'm going to seem weak? Well, what happened to being humble in the sight of God? So I say it again. True offense deserves correction. True offense deserves forgiveness. But pettiness and people with thin skin deserve correction. In other words, forgiveness is reciprocated. Someone say this with me. Forgiveness is reciprocated. You want to know how? Here's how. If you're taking notes, say this with me. God forgives. You forgive. Others forgive. Oh, can we say that again? God forgives. You forgive. And others forgive. It's a circle. Forgiveness should always be taking place. If you think about the passage that says, he says, forgive them 70 times, or the King James Version says 70 times 7, when you calculate that, it's really an oxymoron, because really what it's saying is, even in one day, there's really not going to be an opportunity for me to need forgiveness from you 70 times. So the real thing is not about how many times do you forgive. The real understanding here is you have to have a heart of forgiveness. Because if you have a heart of forgiveness, guess what, baby? No one's counting. No one's counting when you have a heart for forgiveness. All right, I'm going to get a little goofy for a moment here. So check this out. Theodore Seuss Geisel was an American author, political cartoonist, poet, animator, book publisher, and artist, best known for authoring more than 60 children's books under the pen name Dr. Seuss. He wrote this, A Zode in the Road. How many of y'all have heard that story before? A Zode in the Road. I'm going to read that to you today. Is that all right? We're almost done. Did I ever tell you about the young Zode who came to two sides in the fork in the road? He looked one way, then the other too. So the Zode had to make up his mind what to do. Well, the Zode scratched his head, his chin, and his pants, and he said to himself, now I will take a chance. If I go to place one, that place may be hot. Are you with me so far? So how will I know if I like it or not? On the other hand, though, I'll feel such a fool if I go to place 2 and find it's too cool. In that case, I may catch a chill and turn blue. So place 1 may be best and not place 2. On the other hand, though, if place 1 is too high, I might get a terrible earache and die. On the other hand, though, if place 2 is too low, I might get some terrible pain in my toe. So place 1 may be the best. And he started to go. And he stopped and he said, on the other hand, though, and for 36 hours and 1/2, that Zod made starts and made stops at the fork in the road, saying, no, don't take a chance. You may not be right. Then he got an idea that was wonderfully bright. Play safe, cried the Zod. I'm no dunce. I'll simply start off to both places at once. And that's how the Zod, who would not take a chance, got no place at all with the split in his pants. Friends, freedom is taking a chance. You may be wrong, you may be right. God is with you through the journey and through the night. That was mine. I can be a poet now. You see, in this passage we read to the start this discussion. You see, we started this discussion in Matthew chapter 18, right? Where Jesus is basically telling us to take a chance by forgiving someone a bunch of times. Isn't that what he said? When we began to read the passage, the disciple asked the question, should I forgive 7 times? No, he said, take it to the next level, 70 times. The oddity in this is that forgiving someone so many times isn't an earthly understanding. It's a kingdom and a heavenly concept. Forgiveness is not something that we humanly want to do. We don't wake up in the morning and say, my girlfriend cheated on me, but I'm going to forgive her. We don't wake up and say, my friend stole $1,000 from me, but I'm going to forgive them. No, we instantly wake up feeling some kind of way about the person that did us wrong, or the perp, as they call it, the perpetrator who did them wrong. That's why we cannot look at forgiveness with our earthly mindset, but we must take on our heavenly mindset to really understand the heart of forgiveness. I heard someone say before, offense is like, or unforgiveness or bitterness is like taking a pill and hoping that the other person gets sick. Taking the pill that will cause harm, hoping the other person gets sick. You see how crazy that sounds? God wants us to be free. And we find freedom in forgiveness. We find freedom when we take a chance. Check this out. I wrote this down. The oddity in this is this. You see, we must understand that all through history, people have defied odds. All through history. We've seen it in sports. We've seen it in business. I have a few of them for you. Are you ready for this? Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson in 1990. He was given a 42-1 chance to win. This was declared the biggest upset in all of sports history. Buster Douglas, I remember I was watching the TV, ready for Iron Mike, and he looked different. He was all blacked out. He looked like he didn't prepare. He looked like he was just ready to come off the streets and knock this guy out. And because of his cockiness and his arrogance, Buster Douglas is a household name now because everyone remembers the first time that Mike Tyson got knocked out. This is my favorite. So forgive me for being a homer. In 2007, the New York Football Giants beat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. The Patriots were 12-point favorites. They went through that season up until that point undefeated. People were talking about them being the greatest team of all times, better than the Miami Dolphins that went 16-0, I believe, or 15-0. I can't remember the number exactly. They lost that game. The New York Giants defied the odds. This one is really good too. Albert Einstein. Do you know that Albert Einstein did not utter a word until he was 4 years old? Not only that, years later, his elementary teacher called him out for being lazy and for asking abstract questions. Today, we recognize him as a genius. Last one. Walt Disney started his career by being fired. You know, I started my ministry career being fired. So, if I'm looking at the story of Walt Disney, I think I'm doing okay. He started his career being fired by the local newspaper. Then, let's take it to the next level. He created the character Mickey Mouse, and it was rejected in the beginning because they said that it was scaring women. They deemed it too scary. My question today is, aren't you glad Walt Disney didn't give up? I know every time my kids know that we're going to Florida, they want to know, are we going to Disney World? There are many instances where people defied the odds and took a chance. The story in Dr. Seuss with the Zode, he didn't want to take a chance, so he said, I can't go right, I can't go left. I'm taking both paths at the same time. We both know that that's impossible. We all know that that's impossible. Freedom comes when we take a chance. In closing, become the trifecta. We say, Vince, what in the world is the trifecta? The trifecta, for those of you that may not know this name originated for people that betted on horses, that if you bet the order of the first three horses in the proper order, so in other words, you got it correct that which horse was going to be first place, which horse was going to be second place, and which horse was going to be third place, that's called the trifecta. So here's the trifecta as it relates to understanding this spiritual concept. Practice godly forgiveness. Somebody say, I will practice godly forgiveness. Practice self-forgiveness. And finally, practice forgiving others. Rock the nation.